We have felt some pain at the pump over the past week or so as gas prices have jumped very quickly. It's a little shocking. So as the war in Iran continues, the price of oil and gas has been impacted. So Matt McClain of GasBuddy.com joining us this afternoon to really talk about what's happening and what drivers can expect in the future. Matt, thanks for joining us. I'm really interested to talk about this with you because as a petroleum analyst, I'm curious about how your job works. You're analyzing some of this data, kind of crunching some of the numbers. Can you tell us a little bit about, first, what that process looks like for you? And right now with some of these changes, how have you seen the impacts?
Boy, when you talk about crunching numbers, it's no understatement there over the past 9 to 10 days. If I told you how much coffee I've had, I think we would both be pretty surprised at that. We have a lot going on, understandably, with crude oil. You've seen it reflective at the local pumps. Really, in Minnesota right now, sitting at $3.27 a gallon, and that's up quite a bit over the past week. We analyze a lot of things, and typically speaking, for us here at GasBuddy, you're probably very much accustomed to the idea we throw out a projection on, let's say, a Monday, and by Friday or Saturday, we normally hit that bullseye. When you get into a war-type footing or a conflict-type footing that has a direct impact on 20% of the world's oil supply, you almost have to flip that on its head and then start saying, okay, immediate post-analysis. What happened yesterday? What happened the day before that we know for a fact is going to begin impacting oil prices? The reason why we do that, we don't know where the missiles are going to land today. We don't know where they're going to land tomorrow. So how can you create an analysis based on so much unknown? But so whenever we look into the immediate past, we're able to then identify particular situations where we're going to say that's going to impact oil, that's going to impact gas prices, and this is why we're coming with multiple forecasts at times, 2 and 3 during the week, to make sure that we keep things on the accuracy there. I wish I could say that we are going to see prices stall out where we are right now. Unfortunately, in our analysis, that is not necessarily going to be the case.
Oh boy. Can you, I know you're not, you can maybe make predictions, but if you could see into the future, how much are we talking?
It is not out of the realm of possibility, and please, I'm just the messenger here, but within the next several days, the national average may very well hit the $4 a gallon mark as a result. We've seen a little bit of a pause that was expected. Based on a post-analysis of the previous several days, this is something that we have expected. Now, you may have been reporting on the idea that the IEA is doing an organized release of some strategic petroleum out of multiple reserves across the globe. One would think that that would have calmed markets down. It's actually done nothing to calm it down, mostly because we need many more millions barrels per day of oil to help compensate for the loss of the fact that the Strait of Hormuz remains closed than what the strategic reserves are able to provide. So in my cheat screen just off camera here, I'm looking at $3.30 so far on an increase in West Texas Intermediate, now $87 a barrel. Brent crude in the European exchange sitting at up almost $4 per barrel at 91.57. Both of those are roughly about 4% higher than where they were when the markets opened this morning, and we're continuing to see that climb also in wholesale gasoline prices so far today, up another 13 cents. That one's a big one when it comes to what you pay at the pump.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about that too, because when you think of maybe regular gas, right, which most of us typically use, but when you think about farmers who maybe utilize diesel, have you seen that sharp increase as well in that lane?
We have seen an even sharper increase on diesel, not just with farmers, but recognize when you go to the grocery store, everything sitting on those store shelves at one point or another was probably sitting on a semi-tractor trailer while it was on its way. When you have an overall national average increase of diesel by roughly $1 a gallon in just 10 days, plus additional hikes in the forecast in the coming days, I am concerned concerned that the ripple effect in the economy, we will start to see some of that in the coming days. The litmus test will be in the more perishable items along the outer edges of your grocery store. Think produce, never frozen meats, dairy products that require more frequent shipments than, let's say, a canned good or a box item that's more shelf stable, and a grocery store can store more of that at a time. If you start to see prices rising in those more perishable areas of the grocery store when it comes to the food item, that's probably a very good indicator that we're beginning to see the extra shipping cost passed along. And again, yet one more pain point for every consumer out there. It's not just stopping at the gas pump. It's literally costing us money in multiple different ways.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear, Matt, because, yeah, when we do talk about this, we typically think of, us getting in our car. Of course, you head to the gas pump and that's that. But when you talk about maybe, other trucks and things being utilized to get to the grocery store, then that certainly puts it into perspective. In your line of work, is it typical to see a change that sudden like we have seen, or because I feel like often we hear about these slower increases in prices?
Oh, by far. This past week has felt like we are standing in front of a wide open fire hose at this point compared to what we would normally see for the crude oil market. And it's not just the petroleum analysts here at Gas Buddy, myself, Patrick DeHaan, and others. It's industry wide. Everyone has felt the sudden tumultuousness of it all. And the reason why, everyone knows how important the Strait of Hormuz is. So you're seeing this rapid reaction in the crude oil and wholesale gasoline markets because of the strategic importance that the Strait of Hormuz has. As long as it remains closed, we are not out of the woods yet. I'm really not even optimistic that the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, I'm actually a little bit more concerned. Once we run out of emergency supplies across the globe, if we don't have a solution for the Strait of Hormuz, then what?
And Matt, as we talk about the prices here jumping at least by 50 cents, this might sound like a silly question, but is there anything that people can do to maybe even save a couple of cents at this point?
It's not a silly question at all. In fact, I've been saying this for the past 2 weeks. I've done somewhere in excess of 200 television interviews since last Monday. That's why the coffee's been flowing. The fact of the matter is, most folks can save some money. We're all Americans. We all like to speed at times. We kind of look at the speed limit whenever it's available to us as more of an option or a suggestion, if you will. We need to slow down a little bit. And the reason that we need to do that, when you start going 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, 10 miles or beyond, you're costing yourself 25 to 35% in fuel efficiency, quite literally burning money up out of your tailpipe. The other thing you can do, properly inflated tires, oil changes, air filters, everything that could stress out your engine while it is moving your vehicle down the road, remove the stress. That will help you save money. The Gas Buddy app will point you to the cheapest prices. We've even got discounts in there from different partners. I saw one just the other day for 33 cents a gallon off. The combination of the two will help. It may not totally mitigate the sudden jolt in prices, but every penny at this point for all of us that are price sensitive in this country, it goes a little bit better and further along than it would have otherwise.
Yeah, a little goes a long way. Matt McClain, appreciate your time. Very good insight from Gas Buddy. Also, sorry to contribute to I need to contribute to your coffee fund at this point. Sorry to add
I almost want to buy stock.
Exactly, there you go. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
No problem. Have a good one.